This video lesson is intended for high school English teachers and gives them some ideas to encourage independent reading by their students. In February 2020, I was invited to participate in the annual IEB User Group National Conference in Johannesburg. Fiona Kampmann of St. John's College asked me to join a panel of other English teachers and share the methods that have worked for us to get our students to read more. This PowerPoint presentation is the one that I used for that conference. Now, since February, our worlds have been turned upside down by the coronavirus pandemic. In an effort to continue providing my own students at St. Patrick's CBC in Kimberley with good quality input, I created the Mrs. M Teaches English YouTube channel. I thought this would be a good platform to share my materials with other IEB teachers, hence converting the user group conference PowerPoint into the video that you're watching now. Should you have any queries, please don't hesitate to contact me at the email address you see on the screen. I firmly believe that we English teachers are book whisperers. Part of our job description is to instill a love of reading in our students and to introduce them to books that will challenge them linguistically, but more importantly, we need to introduce them to books that they'll enjoy reading. So, how do you become a book whisperer for high school students? It's the easiest thing. You don't need anything special. You just need a huge dollop of enthusiasm. The photograph on the screen is of my classroom pre-COVID, when the desks were placed in groups. You'll see that there's nothing fancy or unusual. It's an ordinary room as can be found in most of our schools. And that's your blank canvas. I place book suggestions everywhere, on the notice boards on the walls. I even string them from the ceiling. When a kid rolls their eyes in my classroom, I give them something to look at. What you see in this photograph are pennants showing titles of novels suitable for the age groups in my classes. I have a small classroom library with loads of young adult novels. At the beginning of every year, I make a page for each student that I teach. Students are allowed to borrow one book at a time from my library. I write the title of the novel on the page with the date that the student borrowed the book. They may take as long as they need to read the book, and when they return it, I write the return date on the page. It's a very simple method which allows me and my students to keep track of what they have read. They use these lists to select their 7 novels for the IEB oral assessment, which must be completed in grade 12. Unfortunately, I do have to buy the books out of my own pocket, but my students generally are very good at looking after my books. At the beginning of every English lesson, I do a very quick bell ringer activity with my classes. Once a week, I recommend a novel to them. Since lockdown, I've made some of these recommendations as videos. Every book that I recommend I've read myself and is available in my classroom library. I make a point of keeping up to date with recent publications and popular YA novels. It helps that I have found a kindred spirit in the manager of our local bargain bookstore. Claude of Kimberley Bargain Books regularly sources these books for me. Every year, I make displays of recommended books on the notice boards in our high school quad. This year, I put up a display linking popular music albums with recent young adult novels. If, for example, you like Beyoncé's 2013 album called Beyoncé, chances are that you'll enjoy reading Jacqueline Woodson's novel, Another Brooklyn. Both the album and the novel address issues of relationships and feminism. The album, Beyoncé's Fifth, was developed as a visual album with short films that illustrate the themes. The novel, published in 2016, is the reminiscence of August, the main character, as she remembers her teen years and the friendships she formed in her Brooklyn neighborhood. I find my students love to talk about the musical links to these newer novels. For fun, you can challenge your students to post photographs of themselves reading in unusual situations. This extreme reading challenge is just for fun, as the emphasis is on the picture, not the novel content. Every year, my students have to complete an independent reading task, an IR task, based on a choice of 3 books. This year, they could select Internment by Samira Ahmed, The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, or Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I always include an African author in the choice. The books are linked by a common theme, allowing for a generic question in the transactional writing section of paper 2. This year, the common theme is social justice. The students are given 1 lesson a week during term 1, during which they work on their IR tasks. The bookmark in the middle of the slide helps them to pace their reading. The photograph on the right shows the 5 written assignments which have to be completed. There is 1 booklet for character, another for conflict, and setting, and theme, and plot. Each credit card-sized booklet contains 4 options. The students choose 1. For setting, the choices were these. The first one, imagine a new location in which the novel could take place. How would the story change? The second, imagine a new time in which the novel could take place. How would the story change? 3. What are your least favorite details about the setting? How could you change them to make them more interesting? And the fourth one, what song would you expect to hear on the radio in this novel? Why? The student chooses one of these 4 in relation to the novel. As the topics are generic, it doesn't matter which novel the student has chosen. For younger students, you could get them to make these story cubes. I print the template on A3 card. Each side of the cube is labeled, for example, conflict or symbolism, protagonist. The students have to illustrate the cube to represent that aspect of their chosen novel. They glue the sides to make the actual cube, and I display them by hanging them from the ceiling in my classroom. My go-to method for IR book discussions is literature circles. The class is divided into groups of pupils who are all reading the same novel. They hold each other accountable for their reading. Each group member is assigned a specific role, for example, character expert, summarizer, researcher. The word wizard will ensure that all group members understand the vocabulary. The literary critic will pose questions, often using published book reviews as a starting point. In this way, the lessons are student-centered and they take responsibility for completing their reading thoroughly. My job as teacher is just to facilitate this once a week. Many colleagues ask me where I get my ideas. My husband will tell you that I spend hours online searching for materials. He's also an English teacher. There are a number of Facebook groups. One of my favorites is Big Black Chapters. This is where I got the idea for the music album and novel posters. Instagram and Twitter provide inspiration. Start following some innovative teachers. I also find a lot of material on Teachers Pay Teachers and TES, but the current exchange rate is making this a last resort. If you have any queries, please drop me an email. I believe passionately that teachers need to be generous, sharing their resources, mentoring young staff members, and supporting one another. Teaching English is a privilege. Let's pool our ideas and experiences so that everyone, teachers and students, can benefit.